Welcome to the last part of Company of Heroes 2 Abridged, where last time I was trying to use some things that weren't just mortars, and we found some success using other things like tanks and spamming stuff. We also found success with massed snipers in a special sniping mission. That all went fine, and now we're moving on to the next mission where we need to take a fortified position in a very chaotic assault where loads of allied units are also attacking it at the same time. This was another case, like with the Siege of Leningrad, where I didn't really contribute that much. You can see that the Allies have already broken through the fortifications. At the start, there's a wall there. The Allies somehow blew up the wall and have gotten inside. They're getting absolutely annihilated by a wide variety of things on the other side of the wall. I was hesitant to go through myself. Instead, I just kind of sat outside using my gigantic assault gun and a couple of heavy mortars, my guilty pleasure, to take out some of these things that were defending the walls, like those heavy machine guns, while just kind of generally sitting around. Looks like the AI has started sitting around in my base as well. After a while, I did actually grab some units and advance, because I noticed the AI had somehow killed everything over here while I wasn't looking at it. I suspect it was actually my mortars or artillery just firing on fire at will mode that took them out. But whatever happened, we're in. We've bypassed their outer layer of fortifications at this city, and now we'll move through the city itself. I sent a half-track to investigate the Bastion on my flank that I was bombarding earlier, and what do you know, we've totally cleared it out. There's nobody here. They might have actually retreated or something. So that's a free capture point for us, and there's another one on the other side of the map at the right end of the wall that I'll get later. In the meantime, we just need to advance up through the city and capture 2 key points and a bunch of other points that happen to be along the way. This T-34 is doing the scouting for us this time, encountering this flame half-track. Guessing the flames won't do too much damage to us. We seem to take a lot of it without losing health there. Then we just shuffle backwards and draw the enemy in towards our other stuff. We've got an anti-tank gun nearby. We've got loads of those self-propelled artillery guns, the light artillery. They're not that good. I think they're mainly for use against infantry, but I'm going to use them to attack the enemy tanks anyway. It doesn't do nothing at the very least. And I've got 2 heavy mortars, which are kind of doing the work for me again. We've fallen off the wagon somewhat in this mission because those mortars were doing particularly well. They're just too good for city assaults. Here was a bit of a situation where the enemy bamboozled me by not standing still while I bombarded them. This meant my sniper who was spying on them had to do a bit of a runaround of that bus to avoid getting killed. We somehow got away with all that, and looks like the enemy have been cleared out of that square as well by all the various exploding things. That works pretty well. We advance on, but there's a small square around the capture point that was packed with stuff, including a couple of heavy tanks there, so my T-34 rapidly reverses out of that situation while being half dead. I quickly call up the engineers to try and keep it alive. We're bombarding that square, but that's not going to do too much against things like the Tigers. I need to use my heavy assault gun to fire at them instead, because it just has an absolutely massive frontal cannon that kills everything very fast. I wanted to somehow keep the Sherman alive, so I've put the engineers on the front line doing the usual super cheeky maneuver. In this case though, it actually doesn't work out. The T-34 gets destroyed. Then I swap it out for the heavy assault gun, and that works a bit better. We can just shoot backwards and forwards with the enemy's heavy tanks and eventually kill them. Meanwhile, this half-track sneaks around the side to see what else this square has to offer. Unfortunately, the square wasn't emptied by that first attack. There was another tank somewhere in the corner, so when I went in, we ended up engaging that tank, and things get a bit messy. As you can see here, we've got a T-34 at point-blank range with it. We've still got the assault gun, which can move up now and take out that tank, but the half-track ended up in an awkward situation. By fleeing from the tank, I ended up in a corner where the enemy are attacking me with rocket launchers. We're going to do some emergency maneuvers here. I get the shock troops out of the back and run them round the corner. They're all dead except for one guy, but one guy is all we need, and the half-track with a busted engine somehow gets around the corner as well. So now we're going to bounce back. We can re-recruit the unit from the half-track since it's a little bit still alive. Not that we necessarily need to, because it looks like while I was doing that maneuver, our tanks and big stuff blew up everything in the square anyway, so we quickly capture it. Then I needed to move over to the right and capture another square. I was taking my time, and the game apparently has something to account for this. Eventually, your objective changes to doing the entire mission within a certain time limit. It's not so kind as to tell you what that time limit is, but We've got that bar at the top, so we need to get a move on apparently. Our route towards the next enemy capture point is absolutely crammed with enemy tanks. Once again, I'm going to use the heavy assault gun to just continuously fire at them. It has loads of health as well, the assault gun thing, so it can just tank all of the enemy tanks and somehow get away with this. Plus our engineers are constantly moving up and repairing it. I also sent a T-34 to outflank the square, going in via a different entrance, and that helped out as well, getting a few flanking shots on the tanks. Soon the last of the vehicles explodes. Still a few infantry units here, but we can just charge right at them. There's a bunch of smoke here on the ground. I think I might have accidentally ordered a plane to attack myself or something. Not quite sure, but whatever the case, we capture this area as well. And we get an achievement after doing this. That achievement, I later learned, is for capturing the 2 squares on your own. So apparently, the AI companion in this mission is supposed to be able to take at least one of the objectives, and it's a special achievement to do it yourself. It did do quite well at first, breaking through the outer defences without me really helping very much, but after that I don't think they really contributed. They've got units walking around the city and the occasional artillery piece that gets into a good position, but they're not really doing very much. Anyway, now we just have to attack the final bastion at the back of the map. This one, well, I'm just going to absolutely scum it, because there were only a few ways in and there were tanks and anti-tank guns pointing at them. So I literally just used a recon plane to look over the wall, then heavy mortared everything into submission before I went on to this next courtyard. But then we start getting mortared, or something anyway. My half-track gets blown up from above, that's a little bit nasty, and there's plenty of stuff round that corner we can see just waiting for us to go into the next section. I ended up mainly going to the right rather than the left. I had my mortars attack the tanks and infantry on the left, while my tanks are going to attack the stuff on the right. And these heavy mortars are pretty effective against tanks as long as it's not like a Tiger or something that has really heavy armor. The lesser tanks will gradually die, and because the AI is not very good, they won't really get out of the way, so you're guaranteed to kill them eventually. But my tanks going up to the right side of this area reach the back, which is where we need to capture. There's a massive howitzer here and a bunch of other stuff. I did an airstrike and a bunch of tank attacks to clear this area out. Another achievement there for killing the howitzer. Well, I'm not sure why that's an achievement. You'd probably want to do that anyway. Guessing the game's just being generous here with some easy achievements. We complete that mission, and now it moves right into another mission where we need to surround a town that the Germans currently hold. They're planning to leave, so we need to capture all of the routes out and stop them from leaving. And this is the mission I talked about last time as being the real final mission, in that this mission is significantly harder than the ones that came before it, or the one that comes after it, the actual final mission. So we'll treat this as the climax of the gameplay. First of all, it's not that hard. We just need to capture this position in front of us. There were some anti-tank guns and machine guns, but you could just go to the left and not really be in their line of sight. So we get in easily enough. My mortar is killing the enemies in place positions. My infantry are dying while very ineffectively trading with the enemy's infantry in the base. That's all fine. The problem is a bunch of tanks start appearing, and we're not really geared up to deal with that. There is an anti-tank gun on the south end of the base we can grab to help out. We can't deploy tanks ourselves because apparently there are anti-tank guns in the base. I think it might be just catching up to the fact that we've already taken out their anti-tank stuff, so we can bring the tanks up right now. This is me trying to get a bombing run to work. On several missions you've been able to bomb positions with planes, and I could just never get it to work. Most of the time it just says you can't do it, for no particular specified reason. Anyway, some tanks on our side move up, including a tank destroyer. So now we can fall back from the enemy base, draw those enemy tanks forward. Now we've got anti-tank guns and anti-tank tanks firing at their stuff. Trying again to get a bomber to come in and blow them up, but it's just not happening for whatever reason. Sometimes you can bomb when it's just a single plane like a dive bomber, but getting a bombing run going seems to not happen. Now we move on to the first major challenge of this mission. We have to capture both sides of the map at the same time within a time limit. The game suggested you send units in both directions, but I was like, no, I'm going to send most of my stuff in one direction, like one side at a time, to maximize our force concentration. But that time limit's actually going down, or going up as it was, pretty quickly. Annoyingly, it doesn't tell us what the real time is, but I figured we probably don't have that long to do this, so I'm going to be rushing forwards, just spamming the tanks to tank everything in front of us, including the enemy's rocket launcher shots and anti-tank shells. and then the infantry will come in to try and somehow salvage something of the situation. There's definitely an RNG element to this, because the anti-tank guns, while good against tanks, can miss, and they quite often do, so by cheekily reversing out of their line of sight, you don't die too much. Looks like I advanced so fast I didn't bother to take out that Stug that's now right behind us. We'll just keep somehow ignoring that. I've got some infantry up to this point to take out the anti-tank gun, but there's an MG right behind it, so we need to get out of there as soon as possible. We take out the anti-tank gun, now the tanks can move up and do their thing. They're only going to get a bit panzer-forested, and that's probably fine. We plow on up the right side of the map, and you can see we're getting towards having used up half of the time limit as we approach the halfway point of the objective. So we're really just about on schedule, even with my faster than normal strategies. They're still somewhat slow, because I still keep wanting to stop and take out enemy hardpoints. I want to destroy MGs and anti-tank guns. Here was a case where I didn't destroy an anti-tank gun by the looks of things. Maybe it was the mortar. Something blew up my tank at the very front of the column. So now I'm going to have my mortar fire at their mortar. That's the slow way of doing things. Just absolutely charging with that medium tank destroyer might do the job as well. But it works out vaguely in the end. We press into this capture point with just under half the time used and clear it out. So now we need to start thinking about taking the other point. I'd also left part of my army behind for that entire push, because I thought the enemy might attack my main base in the middle. They didn't, so if I'd been using those units, it would have been a bit easier, suffice to say. Need to slap down the building that lets us bring out more tanks, and get ready to push up the other side. But the thing is, we're also going to be attacked here at the same time. It's a take and hold situation. Maybe that's why it's better to take both sides simultaneously, because we're going to have to commit units to holding this area while we go all the way around the map and do the other objective now. And we want to leave as few units as possible. It's hard to know how many to leave. I think I ended up leaving a couple of infantry units, an anti-tank gun and a mortar. Everything else needs to rush back to base, and we need to be careful about this too. If you were looking very closely there, you would have seen my initial order to go back to base took me through the enemy's controlled area in the middle, so we needed to waypoint around the edge of the map. I think this is the first time in the campaign I actually needed to waypoint, so they are upping the ante in many ways in this mission. We start rushing back, while also having our advanced units begin the attack up the west side, because we are pressed for time. Keep forgetting units left in buildings. That was a problem I had throughout the campaign, putting a unit in a building and then not seeing it anymore and forgetting about it. Need to keep an eye on the minimap for that sort of thing. Here's the force we're leaving behind. Hopefully it will do the job. They're fighting somebody here, but I think it's just like the odd infantry unit that attacks, so you don't need to leave that much. Meanwhile, it's go time. We need to press into these woods and try not to die. We're going to be just charging for the most part, but after a short charge I then stopped because we encountered a heavily defended position just beyond these woods, this raised area, which I decided to take out the old-fashioned way, using long-range tank attacks, mortars, and a plane as well. The plane here doesn't appear to do very much. It drops smoke all over the place. We see a plane fly overhead and, well, I don't know if it did anything by the looks of things. I think the explosions we saw are just my tanks and mortars firing at that position. The entire thing does cause the enemy to come down off the hill though and get some units killed. So it works out. We push forwards and capture that point, and then soon we've ground our way up to the final capture point. We just about did it with about 90-something% on the clock. But then we immediately get into the next phase of the mission, where the enemy will now try to break out at both of these corner points. So this is going to present the issue that because I've got almost all my units here at this one corner, the other corner is going to be vulnerable, and it's going to take an extremely long time to get back over to the other corner from here. The longest possible time really on the map, since we're going around to the entire edge of it. So I'm going to start here setting up some waypoints to have stuff go back over there to distribute our forces a bit more. In the meantime, the scraps that we have left over here have to try and hold on. That half track immediately just drives past our defences. That's going to be an issue. And our nearly dead infantry need to take out the enemy infantry who are coming up to point blank range. Inconvenient to say the least. And it gets worse and worse here because the enemy drive up with a flame half track. And that just absolutely annihilates everything. We're mostly defending with infantry. They die in like half a second when flames hit them. If I wasn't looking at this, I'd have no hope. They would all be dead. But luckily I was looking, so I saved a couple of lives and put a satchel charge on the half track, which almost kills it. It's not quite dead, but it's going to sort of be stuck in the corner there for a bit. So we've got almost nothing here. You can see we've already let 17 of 25 enemy units escape. I'm not quite sure where that was because it was all happening off screen, but it's presumably on that front rather than this other corner where we're holding the enemy more successfully. Although the other thing I suspected is that the enemy might actually have a few units moving off the map to the west and southeast. There are other roads that leave the map. I don't know if we were supposed to defend all of them. Suffice to say, it's pretty hard to defend just the two, so I feel like you shouldn't have to defend all of them. It was a case when I finally got the bombers to work. I ordered the bombers to take out that nearly dead half-track, and they actually start flying in to do it. Meanwhile, my other staff has to deal with these tanks who have totally broken through. We've absolutely lost control of the road and the railway out of town, but somehow the escaped thing isn't going up. They just weren't escaping. They kept being aggroed over to fight me, and then we somehow fought our way back thanks to the arrival of reinforcements ordered from the other side of the map arriving just in time. And we, by means unknown, retake the capture point. I wonder if the game was being generous to me because it saw it could easily just have a whole bunch of units leave and fail the mission. It thought, I know, let's have them wait around to give the player a chance. It seems like the kind of game where it might be programmed to give the player extra chances when you're about to get screwed over. It's been generous so far. Back over at the top left corner, we're still not in a particularly good situation because after thinning my defences out here to put more stuff in the other corner, this next big attack is making some progress. We're pretty much out of infantry and our tanks are being taken out by loads of infantry just standing right in front of them and firing rocket launchers. We've also got a couple of enemy tanks stuck on each other there in the corner. I ordered the bombers to come in to deal with them. This mortar team is absolutely screwed in the middle of everything. We don't really have time to recruit more units, but I'm trying to do it every now and again. And there goes my heavy tank on the front line. That's very inconvenient right now. We've got a sniper and a few infantrymen defending that entire area, and I'm calling up penal battalions to try and do something, at least, about all of this. I can throw satchel charges at the tanks, so if they don't drive away, that will be effective. Back in the other corner, well, we've got a similar situation, but now I've got more stuff here, so it's a little bit more safe to just leave them to it, and there's the last bits of my reinforcements that were in the other corner arriving. So that looks alright. We've got a few vehicles and the odd infantry unit in the back there. That might be fine. Somehow nothing has still escaped, so that's good. Here's the crunch point though. The enemy are about to take this point. Again, they're not really trying to escape. They're more focused on killing me, so as long as something's still alive in this general area, they seem to be aggroed away from their objective, which they weren't earlier. I don't even know how really we let so many escape because I didn't see it happen, but it's not happening anymore for some reason, and that's absolutely ideal. Looks like we've got an anti-tank gun sneaking up to take out that tank there. Luckily I happened to look over and see it. There was also a detonation button on the ground there. I was trying to put some demo charges underneath an enemy tank that had parked there. That's what that was about. Anyway, back in the top left, a satchel charge successfully takes out the tank on the capture point, and a sniper sitting in the woods at the back carefully killed all of the infantry in this area as well. It was kind of subtle since it was happening in the background, but it actually killed tons of stuff, it being the sniper there. And that completed the mission for us. This returns us to the interrogation scene. It's been a while, where we're talking about the race to Berlin now, setting up for the final mission. And it's basically saying that we were being very brazen and rushing our way in to make sure it was our army that took the capital as opposed to our allies for added glory, etc. I thought where they were going with this was another time limit, because you could plausibly just say you have to take the Reichstag within a certain amount of time, or it's not glorious enough and you fail the mission. But as it turns out, this final mission is a really standard one that's similar to ones we've seen before, where you just have to capture the map, but it's also easier because you have access to the heavy tanks, which can just tank absolutely everything. And the enemy don't have anything special on the map. It's not like packed out with mortars and hidden anti-tank guns or anything like that. It was just a simple go across the map kind of stage. So here we are on the other side of the map. I'm going to cut out the middle part of the mission. Let's attack the Reichstag. The place was mined up, but in another series first, I bothered to add mine detectors to an engineer squad, and it seems they automatically just go out and do something that gets rid of the mines. I think you can just go around them, but this makes life a bit easier. As for the Reichstag itself, it's packed with enemies garrisoning it. I figured we shouldn't just destroy the entire building, because earlier in the mission it said something like we need to take it intact, but there doesn't appear to be any actual objective linked to that. Maybe if you do just blow everything up, it fails the mission for you. But anyway, I was thinking of using this incendiary bombardment thing to set it on fire, and maybe that would kill the garrisoned units inside. Well, it works a little bit, just not as well as I expected. But following on with that idea, I upgraded a bunch of my penal battalions with flamethrowers. They can then just run up to point blank range and shoot the fire in through the windows. That will also take out the garrisoning units inside, pretty fast actually. So that works well. We clear out the Reichstag building, but before we can finish capturing it, a bunch of tigers spawn, presumably, and just appear all over the place, leading to our final battle of the war. Just need to take down the tigers, and we're not going to do anything too special here. I've got my heavy tanks that can go toe-to-toe with them, and we have numbers. I think I have an anti-tank gun somewhere. There's a mortar firing in on that. I did have this tank destroyer, but it's way off, having been forgotten somewhere in the middle of the map, unfortunately. But yes, you can see the tigers are going down, and they're struggling to not face their rear armor towards us, and they're certainly not firing back, the usual tiger madness. So that's good, and we complete the game. Now we have a scene that reveals what's been going on with the plot the whole time. Our main man, after writing his secret history of what really happened, tried to defect to quote-unquote the West. He appears to be at the Gulag when he's arrested. And then our commanding officer sends him a few feet further into the Gulag, personally. So that's why we're here. Now, we're going to be executed for our various crimes. Some guy shows up to shoot us in the face. Or does he? Now the plot twist. Actually, the guy who was arguing with us the whole time shoots the executioner and helps us escape the Gulag. So what is up with that? It just so happens that the guy interrogating us has been tipped off that he's going to be killed by Stalin for one reason or another in the near future. And he also happens to have already read our main man's journalism accounts of what quote-unquote really happened, and he already believed it. That entire argument was some sort of ruse or something. I don't really know why we were arguing even at the time we were arguing. We were just arguing about something. Actually, we were both in agreement that lots of war crimes took place, so the guy lets us escape to go and tell the story of those war crimes. He kills himself because he was about to get killed for some reason anyway. And that's that. The happy ending is that we managed to smuggle the Company of Heroes 2 script out of the Gulag and get it to the West, where it can finally be published in its not particularly well-sourced glory. And that's Company of Heroes 2. We did it. I guess stopping the Nazis may have been important, although it doesn't come up. So maybe that was just a side benefit. Was it a benefit at all? The game itself almost makes a point of not mentioning whether we needed to do that or not. Anyway, we then go into a credit sequence. It shows loads of cool concept art and even some things that appear to be cut content, like this cutscene storyboard going past wasn't in the game. It appears to show the guy actually writing the diary and stabbing the page and blood comes out or something there. Well, that didn't happen in the game. Maybe some cooler stuff was planned at some point. The concept art looked pretty good overall. And that's the campaign. There are more campaigns in the game, as people have already noted, including a DLC campaign that is supposedly much better than the main campaign. There are also all of these theatre of war things. I didn't try any of them, I'm not sure what they are. I was put off by the fact that when you click on the menu, the majority of what's on there is just stuff asking you to buy DLCs. It's one of these menus in general where most of the stuff is trying to trick you into buying something, and it just annoys me overall. So I didn't actually look into any of these, but I'm guessing they're like planned skirmishes or something, so they're kind of like the campaign missions, but maybe a bit different in some way. Whatever the case, I didn't do them. This is going to be the end of this Company of Heroes 2 campaign. There was some suggestion that I play the superior DLC campaign, but what I think I'd rather do is play the original Company of Heroes campaign, because you can mod it and make it more interesting. And I'd like to see some sort of mod where we have long-range fast time to kill, no guarantee that you can actually complete the campaign under those rules as well. That would make it more interesting, and then just see what happens with that. But for now, I'm actually going to be keeping on a World War II theme, but moving away from Company of Heroes, because the next series will be Hearts of Iron 4 once again. That might be my final Hearts of Iron 4 campaign as well. We'll see, so join me for that in the very near future. Thank you for joining me for Company of Heroes 2, and keep an eye out for some Company of Heroes 1 gameplay coming one day.